Pak Luhut Pandjaitan, our Coordinating Minister of Maritime Affairs and Investments, and also, let me get my Zoom out of the way, and also the Honorable John Kerry, United States Special Presidential Envoy for Climate. And we also have a number of very distinguished and esteemed guests tonight with us. Excellencies, friends, partners, Secretary General of ASEAN is here. And of course, everyone who will be part of this very, very historic moment. To begin our proceedings, I would like to invite His Excellency Luhut Pandjaitan to give us your opening remarks, the Coordinating Minister of Maritime Affairs and Investment and the co-host of this Hita Karana Forum. Minister Luhut, the time is yours.
The Honorable John Kerry, the Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, His Excellency Mr. Alok Sharma, President COP26 UNFCCC, my colleague Minister Suharso, Excellency Mari Pangestu, my very good friend, Managing Director of Development Policy and Partnership World Bank, Mr. Mahendra Srigar, Vice Minister Minister for Foreign Affairs and Chair of Republic Indonesia Climate Working Committee. I would like to welcome you today to Hita Karana Forum Aligned for Climate Action and on road to net zero carbon emission. This dialogue today is an important step as we move towards COP26 in Glasgow later this year. Let me begin by recognizing and thanking Special Envoy, Excellency John Kerry. If I may address you, Pak John Kerry, because Pak meaning more warm address, this is the Indonesian way. Pak John Kerry for his personal support of the U.S. government in our efforts. John and I spoke in February, and since then, a vibrant dialogue between our two countries has followed. We have set up task force with 4 working groups around. Number 1, envisioning climate ambition toward net zero emission. Second, natural capital ecosystem services, land use, forestry, mangroves, and ocean. Third, renewable energy and energy transition for people's well-being. Fourth, sustainable and blended finance for our common future. The joint forum demonstrates both countries' commitment to scale a climate solution to reach net zero for the well-being of people and planets. We very much appreciate the support and welcome the collaboration with the US on these important topics. And as you will see in today's program, these areas of our collaboration are the ongoing focus. Let me also thank to the Hita Karana for its ongoing support, as well as this very prestigious audience for joining us today. Indonesia has made several key announcements on our climate ambition in recent weeks. We announced a net zero emission by 2060 conditional on support. PLN, Indonesian state-owned energy company, has issued a moratorium on new coal-fired power plants development beyond its plan through 2023. After this, it will begin the phase-out of the older coal-fired plants. This major change in energy policy is supported by launch of a presidential decree on renewable energy drawing on geothermal, solar, waste to energy, wind and tidal, as well as the potential for green hydrogen. Further commitment leveraging investment by adopting an energy transition mechanism and parallel commitment around adoption of renewable energy are under discussion. Indonesia plans to invite the region and island nation to initiate natural capital carbon communities, alliance toward a regional carbon market to catalyze a just transition toward net zero in the region. Several of my colleagues in the government will share a feature on these issues in the course of this forum. But let me add, Pak John Kerry, I think after our meeting last February and also the leader summit in Washington, I think the president gave a very clear guidance that we have to move very aggressive on this. So before we set up our target to 2070, because of this discussion before, then president asked us to see the possibility to make it earlier. Then we come up with the 2060. John Kerry and friends, in addition, the cooperation in development and application of renewable energy technology would be a top priority in US-Indonesia relation. This collaboration can cover topics of energy modeling, transition from fossil energy, clean energy technology, and advanced clean energy through collaboration G2G and more broadly related to investment and partnership. Concretely, it is possible to collaborate in planning and implementing and sub-national pilot for net zero carbon emission for Bali, for instance. In all these endeavors, the need for technology change, innovation, as well as the financing for the transition are front and center. The entrepreneurial technology change and innovation finance as key to transforming our economic into natural capital carbon and community superpower. We plan to launch a Center of Excellence in Technology and Finance during our 2022 G20 tenure. We are looking to the private sector for technology innovation because through private sector entrepreneurship, we can secure the massive change needed to meet the global goals. We need a center such as the Center of Future Knowledge that will focus on the role of technology transfer, R&D and private investment with leading global academia and research in realizing a happy, sustainable future in Indonesia. As regards finance, there are some global blended finance that have been established, such as the G1 Fund and the THK Roadmap on blended finance. Currently, we are supporting multilateral blended finance, including the establishment of Global Blended Finance Institute in Bali. In closing, we thank you for the good cooperation, and we invite the US to jointly bring environmental issue and climate change to the G20 in 2022. Thank you, and I wish you a productive forum.
Thank you, Minister Luhut, for your opening remarks. I would also like to invite the Honorable John Kerry, United States Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, to also present your opening remarks to our gathering tonight. Special Envoy Kerry, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the privilege of joining this distinguished forum and all of my colleagues, the impressive gathering of folks who are deeply committed to this. And I'm especially happy to be here with my friend Alok Sharma, who's working hard and doing a terrific job of helping to prepare for our meeting in Glasgow. I'm super pleased to be joining Pak Luhut. He and I have been in very close conversation this year, and I'm traveling to Indonesia very shortly and look forward to having a terrific visit. I want you to know that when I saw on my schedule that I was taking part in the THK Forum, I was a little shocked at first, because usually on my schedules, that's referring to my wife, Teresa Hines Kerry, THK. So I wasn't quite sure what she was cooking up or somebody was cooking up for me. But Pak Luhut and I joined this effort with a very common interest. His grandchildren have urged him to do more to care for our environment. And he shared with me in a very personal way his determination not to let his grandchildren down. And I know for me, I was very privileged when I had the opportunity to sign the Paris Agreement at the UN. And I brought I was babysitting actually at the moment when they called my name. So it was not preordained, but I walked out with my grandchild. and she sat on my lap for the signing of the Paris Agreement. So Pak, Luhut, and I, and all of you, I know, every one of us shares very personal commitment to this endeavor. We have had a chance to talk very intensively about how we can work together to accelerate our efforts, to accelerate Indonesia's efforts, our efforts, and the efforts of people all around the world. And we created this new US-Indonesia Climate Working Group, which we launched way back in April, and it's been working extremely successfully. A lot of progress, a lot of common thought, and I think out of it will come some raising of ambition, and we're very pleased that President Jokowi has really thrown himself into this effort. Let me just remind everybody, if I may, every week, almost every day, we are reading new bulletins of science, of reports that I have to tell you are frankly depressing, if that's all you watch and look at. Just the other day, there was another scientific report talking about the balance of heat in and heat out, and the degree to which the heat out component has been diminished, contributing to the warming, that balance that we've usually had. And that's the nature of greenhouse gases, which compress us, sort of spread a blanket over the earth and don't let the heat back out. But the warming that is taking place around the world is manifesting itself this summer with an intensity that is frightening. We are suffering a drought, unprecedented in America. We have the lowest reservoir levels in Hoover Dam that we've seen since 1937. We have record days of heat. It's in the Middle East, where I just was the other day, the same intensities around the world, record heats in various places. And we're seeing feedback loops that are coming back faster and bigger than the scientists predicted. So the science is being more and more firmed up and is more certain. And the scientists have told us unequivocally in 2018, when the IPCC reported to us that indeed well below 2 degrees is probably not sufficient to avoid much of the great damage that can be anticipated if we don't. And so we're all now recommitting to the 1.5 degrees, and out of President Biden's summit came a commitment from 55% of global GDP to adhere to the 1.5 degrees. And that includes Canada, Japan, and Europe, the UK, the United States, all joining in this effort, with Indonesia, Korea, other countries around the world now struggling to figure out, okay, how are we going to raise our ambition? What are we going to do here? Because the experts have told us that 2.5 years ago, we had 12 years within which to make and implement the critical decisions that would avoid the worst consequences of the climate crisis. The fact is, now 2.5 years later, and I regret enormously the non-action of my country, the fact that we had a president who inexplicably, inexcusably, recklessly took us out of the agreement and slowed us down. He didn't stop us, because a lot of America stayed committed. And we had 37 states with renewable portfolio laws, and we continued to implement them. But I can't tell you that it didn't hurt the momentum, and I can't tell you that it didn't hurt our credibility. That did hurt our credibility, obviously, also. So we're not asking any country to do something that we're not willing to do, nor is Britain, nor is Europe. The developed world is stepping up here. But we believe, and there's a lot more that we can do and must do. And that's why the United States announced a new target of 50 to 52% reduction over the next 10 years. And I know it's great that we're getting a lot of people to step up and say 2050 net zero, but 2050 obviously is 30 years away. And that's a long time. And the fact is, we can't wait for people to sort of say, okay, I'll really be serious about this by 2040 or 2035. We have to be serious now, for the simple reason that the science has been clear that if we do not reduce enough between 2020 and 2030, then we cannot get net zero by 2050. Also, we will kill the opportunity to hold the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees. Now, I know 1.5 degrees even is hard. That's tough, but it is still within theoretical reach. It's within the realm of possibility. And we owe it, if we're going to talk about our grandchildren, our future, to live up to our responsibility to do what is possible. That's how serious this is. So let me just emphasize to everybody, some of the people who don't want change, some of the money and vested interests, the powerful entities that want to keep the little pipeline they've got going, whether it's for their product or whether it is fossil fuel, whatever it is, they have tried for years now to tell people, well, you can't do that because you won't have the electricity, or you won't be able to watch television, or you won't be able to eat, your food production will go down. And the fact is, that is a lie. That is not true. This is not a choice between economic growth and or dealing with the environment. The fact is that all over the world today, countries are moving, and they're finding that these new jobs are cleaner jobs, that their air can be cleaner, their health can be better, that their economy is stronger, their security is stronger. And that is what we have to keep our eye on. In the United States last year, the fastest growing job of all was wind turbine technician. The third fastest growing job was solar panel installer. And the truth is, we have a massive amount of work to do to build out a new grid in America, to do different things, to strengthen our infrastructure, to withstand the change of climate, to adapt, to build resilience. All of these are things that we now need to do. And this economic revolution that we are looking at should not scare people, it should excite people. It's the greatest economic opportunity the world has faced since the Industrial Revolution in the late 1800s. And we have seen how that changed life for the better for millions of people. The severe poverty level, when I went to college in the 1960s, was over 50%. Today, the severe poverty level around the world, as horrible as it is to see in many places, is less than 10%. So we're curing some diseases. We're fighting back together. We're able to do things more importantly. And I think together, and I think that this is an opportunity for us to work together. We are working with Minister Luhut to help bring finance to the table that will facilitate our ability to deploy renewable, to create new partnerships, to be able to bring technology to the table and help Indonesia to be able to do what I know it wants to do and President Jokowi wants to do, which is move to the future, to this new economy where we're better balanced with nature itself. So Pak Luhut and I and President Jokowi understand that we have an opportunity to show the world Indonesia's increased climate ambition, a chance to make to see Indonesia join in the upper level tier of true global leadership on this on the climate crisis, and to help us prepare for Indonesia's leadership of the G20 next year. I'm very excited about working with you in that endeavor. I wish you a terrific discussion in the course of today as you consider all the options available. I'm very thankful to all of you for gathering and for your interest in this. And just remember, folks, this is not a lack of capacity that we are staring at. We have the capacity. It's a lack of will. We have to make the decisions that the world is looking to us to make. So thank you for the privilege of joining you. And thank you, Pak Luhut, for your friendship. I look forward to seeing you in person when I get out there.
Thank you, Special Envoy Kerry, for the very powerful reminder and support. And Minister Luhut, we are very, I think, encouraged by the message, the strong signal of will of collaboration, and looking forward to the rest of the microcosm of the system who are here tonight with us to make all the relevant and necessary commitments towards the net zero carbon emission ambition. So thank you. I would like to now shepherd us to the setting of the stage of the context of tonight's discussions, which will be moderated by our very own Ibu Mari Pangestu, Professor Mari Pangestu, who is now the Managing Director of Development Policy and Partnerships at the World Bank. And also, of course, the THK Karana Forum was born out of her idea and aspirations years ago. So Ibu Mari, I would like to pass on the floor in your capable hands to guide our next round of panel session.
Thank you, Shobi, and thank you for inviting me back to the THK Climate Forum. It's a pleasure to be here to set the scene for our discussions today. This is the plenary session where we hope to set the scene to talk about how do we envision climate action on the road to net zero carbon emission. And thank you, Pak Luhut and Pak John Kerry, for your very strong words of action, will, and it's not just about lack of capacity, but the will to do and to move with ambition. And the partnership obviously is an important pillar in all this. So we have really 4 excellent speakers to set the scene. Let me just spend 1 minute on the context of this forum for developing countries like Indonesia. Really, what we are talking about is responding to the twin crisis, which is the development challenges accentuated by COVID-19 pandemic and the climate crisis. I think John Kerry said it very well. Science and all the reports are very depressing, and we are at or beyond tipping points on the climate crisis, and they are affecting development. Our World Bank's most recent assessment is that without action on climate, 130 million more people will enter into extreme poverty. So it's impacting on development. And the climate change goal of net zero carbon emission is not an end in itself. I think this is very important for developing countries and for countries in general. That's why in our most recent climate change action plan, the World Bank Group is adopting a paradigm shift that integrates climate with development, because development, business as usual, will impact on climate and impacts the poorest and most vulnerable countries and those poor and vulnerable in the countries. And climate without being addressed will impact on development. So this is really what we are talking about. Climate and development goals cannot be achieved without urgent action and at scale by both advanced and developing countries. So this is really, I just wanted to put that as a context, that we are not just looking at climate and net emission, zero net emission. We are looking at it, how do we do it while achieving jobs, growth, economic development, and reducing poverty. So I couldn't think of anyone better than Minister Suharto to start us off on that discussion, because Bappenas, our Ministry of National Development Planning, has actually been working on how to integrate climate into development for the last few years. And we have it now in our medium-term development plan. So I think Minister Suharto is there. Is Minister Suharto on?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I'm here.
Mr. Suharto, you have the honor to kick us off with this in this discussion. Over to you, Minister Suharto.
Yes. His Excellency, Mr. Luhut Binsar Pandjaitan, Honorable John Kerry, Special Envoy to the President of the United States for Climate, Excellencies, Minister and honorable speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure for me to join and meet all of you virtually in this wonderful event. And I would like to appreciate the organizer, speakers, and all participants for making this event possible to happen and meet the very challenging situation we are facing now today. For Indonesia, net zero emission is not only about commitment to reduce greenhouse gases emission as agreed in the Paris Agreement. Further, net zero emission could also become an essential part of Indonesia's economic transformation towards a green economy and sustainable development. Bappenas has a policy scenario low carbon development initiative of net zero emission and its consequences policy as integrated system approach. We have received positive response upon that scenario. However, I think the most important question now for Indonesia is not merely about policies, even when Indonesia could achieve net zero emission, but the most important thing is how to get there. Our analysis shows that achieving net zero emission with any scenarios would require new technologies that are currently not yet implemented, and of course, entail a huge financial consequence. Some of them are carbon capture, utilization and storage, hydrogen, nuclear power, and others in energy sector. We can make a list of these future technologies. Technologies and knowledge transfers, adequate human resource capacity, as well as financial support from advanced economy to developing countries, including Indonesia, are inevitable in achieving net zero emission. There are several reasons behind this. First, climate change is a common crisis for all. Its impact are not bordered by country. It is not a race to compete in. Thus, going together hand in hand in tackling this issue is essential. I urge developed countries to increase their assistance through climate-friendly technology development, as well as providing appropriate financial support and make private sector green investment happen in developing countries. Considering the global supply chain and flow of goods, we shall dismiss the domination of low carbon technologies by developed countries and implement them more intensively in emerging economies. In this instance, financiers are responsible for protecting business interests, minimizing climate-related financial risk, improving decision-making, and delivering a financial strategy to reduce carbon emission. Second, as an emerging country with emission intensity potentially growing over the next 30 years, Indonesia needs to reshape its economy to a greener and a more sustainable path, which can be achieved by implementing the net zero scenario. On the path to Indonesia's net zero emission, technology is an enabler to sustainability. Technology can be a catalyst in the toolbox of financiers to accelerate action and progress in sustainability goals by mobilizing investment, quantifying climate change risk, digitizing the market for financing sustainable infrastructure, and gearing finance professionals with skills and digital tools of a sustainable future. To achieve that, Indonesia certainly desires innovative and climate-favorable technology, of course. Third, it is important to note that the Paris Agreement set an annual climate fund mobilization large target of 100 billion US dollar by 2025, with developed countries as main donors. We are pleased by the recent announcement of the United States President Joe Biden that the United States will double its public climate finance to middle and lower income countries by 2024. Hence, we expect more vigorous mobilization of funds for climate change coming with various schemes, not only as development aids, but also as sustainable investment in strategic sectors such as industry, transportation, and power sector to the developing countries. From the project financing perspective, bankability is a concerning issue for green project development in developing countries. Therefore, developed countries, international financial institutions, and multilateral development banks should provide innovative financing schemes to support green project development in developing countries. At the same time, we will encourage developing countries to fulfill higher standards of green project preparation set by those institutions. Technical assistance can be provided to improve our private sector's compliance in obtaining the funds and executing the project. Without radical steps to advance technology and capacity building improvement, in particular for energy sector in developing countries, it is almost impossible for us to achieve net zero emission as set indicated in our exercise. Therefore, global cooperation, particularly know-how and technological transfer, as well as financial support from advanced economies to developing countries, is a must. We are welcoming future collaboration with all development partners, donors countries, multilateral development banks, and international financial institutions, including private sector, to reshape our world for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Suharto, for emphasizing the importance of a whole economy and systems approach and the policy changes and institutional changes that we need to account for climate risks that can drive the transformative investments that we need to change the system, such as energy. And then you're emphasizing the importance of financing and technology to make that all happen. And I do think those are important pillars in our US-Indonesia partnerships. The second speaker is His Excellency Mahendra Siregar, Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs and Chair of the Climate Working Committee between the US and Indonesia. And he's going to talk about envisioning net zero, road to COP26 and Indonesia G20 presidency. Pak Luhut mentioned that we are increasing our political will to do this, including the fact that we are hosting G20 next year. So let's hear from Pak Mahendra. How do we envision, and not just envision, obviously, how do we realize this vision? Pak Mahendra, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Bu Mary. Excellency Coordinating Minister Luhut Pandjaitan, Honorable Special Envoy John Kerry, Excellency Minister Suharto, ministers, dear colleagues, and of course, participants of the forum. First of all, I would like to extend my appreciation to the Hita Karana for organizing the event. And it's very obvious that Indonesia is highly engaged in this issue of climate change. Out of the 5 summits that President Jokowi has attended this year, 3 of them were related to climate change. And as we approach COP26 in Glasgow, let me share with you some developments that will shape our participation in November. First, of course, Indonesia is committed to lead by example. We are currently very much on track to fulfill our NDC targets of cutting greenhouse gases in the order of 29% by 2030, utilizing our own resources. Much of this is due to our success in the forestry sector. Our permanent moratorium on the conversion of primary forests and peatlands has saved more than 66 million hectares of forest, an area bigger than France. And during a period that has witnessed devastating bushfires in Australia and historically high forest fires including in the US, South America, and Europe, in sharp contrast, Indonesia has managed to significantly reduce its hotspot and deforestation level more than 90%, the lowest level in this millennium. Second, we have increased our climate ambition. Indonesia has submitted its updated NDC, which now includes more action on adaptation, as well as ocean and coastal conservation. We are also currently formulating our long-term strategy on low carbon and climate resilience 2050 to include increasing the use of renewable energy by 23% in 2025 and 31% by 2050. Third, now more than ever, international cooperation is very crucial. As we are on track to reach our 29% NDC target, we are increasingly focusing on our 41% NDC target that involves international support. And in this respect, we are very concerned on the lack of progress in the developed countries' obligations on climate financing and technology transfers under the Paris Agreement. And in order to meet this enhanced target, we will focus on international cooperation that is concrete in nature, be it multilateral, regional, or bilateral, offering financial support and technology transfer. And in this context, I would like to share that last month, I met the US Deputy Secretary of State, Wendy Sherman, during her visit to Jakarta. We have reaffirmed our commitment to strengthen the US-Indonesia strategic partnership to include enhancing bilateral cooperation on climate change, boost investment in new and renewable energy, and support Indonesia's effort on energy transition. With regard to the COP26 in Glasgow, we should emphasize the need to resolve issues remaining under the Paris Agreement Work Program. In particular, Article 6 relating to carbon markets, as well as common timeframes for global stocktaking and climate finance. These pending issues need to be urgently addressed, as they are prerequisites to effectively scale up climate action, including optimizing the role of the private sector. Dear participants, Indonesia is not an expert in promoting the green narrative, but we are leading by example in our climate actions. Ultimately, what we are embarking on is part of creating a sustainable pathway of the post-COVID-19 pandemic world. Together, we can create job opportunity, eradicate poverty, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Climate change is a global challenge that requires global solutions through partnerships, solidarity, and leaderships among engaged nations. Countries need to work together and contribute to the global goal based on national circumstances and priorities. Through its G20 presidency, Indonesia will also aim to forge a global leadership that underscores the importance of unity to recover stronger together. We will work with G20 nations and also bring the voice of developing countries to accelerate the implementation of the UN Sustainable Development Goals 2030 to ensure a sustainable, strong, and inclusive recovery. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Mahendra, for outlining Indonesia's vision and the call for partnership, collaboration for multilateral, bilateral, and the private sector. And I think this is a good segue to the next speaker, Jeffrey Sachs, who will talk about one important pillar of this partnership, which is the US-Indonesia Partnership for Climate Action, whether it's on the financing or the technology, and obviously with the role of the private sector. The climate ambition and the climate goals cannot be achieved without the role of both advanced countries as well as developing countries and global and bilateral cooperation. Jeff, are you there?
I am here.
Jeff, I forgot to introduce. I'm sure everybody knows who Jeffrey Sachs is, but he is the president of the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, of which many of us have been there since the beginning, including THK. Over to you, Jeff.
Ibu Marie and friends, colleagues, excellencies, thank you for the honor to join in today's discussion. It's also a celebration of THK, and perhaps we could say that all good things come out of Bali and will come out of Bali. The philosophy of Hita Karana has come out of Bali. The THK Forum has come out of Bali, and the G20 next year will be the Bali Summit, in which I think we can be confident that all of these issues will be solved. So if we work very, very hard, I don't think that the G20 summit this year is going to resolve these issues, but it will put them on the table squarely. But the G20 summit in Bali could be a historic breakthrough. We need a historic breakthrough. We need essentially a Bretton Woods 2. But maybe instead of calling it a Bretton Woods 2, we'll call it a Bali 1. And the reason is that at the end of the last great crisis of the world, World War II, there was a major conference on how to finance a new post-war world. And that created the World Bank, which Ibu Marie leads so ably with her colleagues. And it created the International Monetary Fund, which will issue $650 billion of SDRs next month. These have been critical institutions, but we need a new financial compact for the world in our time. We need finance for sustainable development, and we need to reach decarbonization everywhere in the world. I would say 100% everywhere by 2050. We know that that means an energy transformation to zero carbon electricity, electric vehicles, hydrogen economy. The components are known, but they're expensive. They require financing. And the rich countries right now borrow at 1% interest, but developing countries pay 5 or 10% interest or have no access to capital. The financial system doesn't work properly because it channels funds to those who have capital and not to those who need capital. This is a basic proposition. And so this is our goal, in my opinion, at Bali 1, the summit next year of the G20. I can't think of a better host of the summit than Indonesia to represent the interests of the developing world in partnership with all of the world. The partnership of Indonesia and the United States in this year, as it's being forged with Secretary Kerry, our finest statesman in the United States, and Minister Luhut, between President Jokowi and President Biden. This is a key pillar for global cooperation. Let's leverage this into a key pillar for solutions. The problem we've seen in this pandemic is that the world has become more unequal, not less unequal. The rich have gotten richer. The billionaires have increased their wealth in the pandemic by $5 trillion. That's just 2,500 individuals. Whereas much of the world, billions of people have become poorer. We see it in the unequal access to immunizations, to technology. And we see it in the unequal access to finance, which is where I want to put my emphasis in the remaining moments of my remarks. The United States has borrowed and spent $6 trillion from last March until now in fighting COVID. Good. This is leading to a vigorous recovery in the United States. But what about developing countries? They have been tightening their belts. While the rich countries have been financing their way through, the poor countries are seeing Fitch and others write down the creditworthiness, downgrade country after country, dozens, making it even more difficult to finance the recovery. So far, there are not satisfactory answers to this. Let me be clear. The G7, the rich countries, have failed so far. They promised back in 2009, $100 billion per year for climate action. Incredible. That was never a big number, but they didn't meet their goal. They still don't have a formula to meet it. All they could do at the G7 was to reiterate a stale promise that is too small by far now, because we need hundreds of billions of dollars per year of financing. So these problems are not solved, which is why I would like to advocate that the Bali summit really resolve these issues. That gives us a year of homework, lead time, and the most beautiful place in the world to settle these issues. Because Bali is inspiring. It brings the best out in people. And so if we come to Bali, we're going to be happy and we're going to agree and we're going to cooperate, especially with the wonderful hospitality of the government of Indonesia, which is unique in its capacity to charm us and to welcome us. And so I think that this is a real opportunity. Let me say that one of our hosts, Sherry Nir Salim, has been championing for years blended financing as a solution. And the idea of having a center of blended finance in Bali to help the whole world in this new era is incredibly timely. But let's keep our eye on what counts, which is that we cannot achieve these goals without the financing behind them. And Mr. Bezos, he has $201 billion in his bank account, personal, as of this morning, $201 billion. And the richest 10 people have 1.3 trillion, personal. So there's plenty of funding around. And the G7 countries haven't even found 100 billion among themselves. Dare I say shame? I will, because I have looked at these numbers for a dozen years. They're not hard to achieve. We need to capitalize the Asian Development Bank more. We need to capitalize the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank more. We need blended financing, green bonds, SDG bonds. We need to capitalize the World Bank more. We need to capitalize the other multilateral development banks more. So let me thank Indonesia for its great leadership. Let me thank the United States and Indonesia for the partnership which symbolizes cooperation between developed and developing countries. Let's get the financing right. Thanks goodness Indonesia will host the G20 next year. I think it can be a historic achievement. Thank you so much. Wonderful to see friends. Back to you, Marie.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for that very impassioned call and for promoting Bali. We're all for that, not just promoting Bali, but that all good things come out of Bali. And I especially like your point, of course, about potential capital increase for MDBs like the World Bank. So, and thank you for hitting the nail on the head by saying that what counts is the financing that will be needed for us to act at scale and with ambition and with urgency, obviously. We have our last speaker, which is His Excellency Alue Dohong, Vice Minister of Environment and Forestry, who will speak to us about natural capital and ecosystem services. Recognizing that one of the depressing numbers that John Kerry, Secretary Kerry was mentioning was how while physical natural capital have been, physical and financial capital have been increasing, natural capital has been declining at alarming rates with very disastrous effect on ecosystem services for which the economy and people depend on. So I think this is a very important topic within the whole climate change discussion. So over to you, Vice Minister Dohong.
Thank you, Ibu Mary. Good morning in Washington and good evening in Indonesia. Coordinating Minister of Maritime and Investment, His Excellency Luhut Pandjaitan, Special Envoy to the President of the USA for Climate, Excellency John Kerry, Excellency Minister Manuapa, my colleague, Excellency Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, and distinguished speakers and participants. In this great opportunity, I'm pleased to share brief information and remarks concerning Indonesia's policies on maintaining our natural capital and ecosystem services. Excellencies, distinguished participants, the positive trends of world population growth and the advance of the economic development influence the environment and natural resources condition. Furthermore, continued rapid population growth and the increase of per capita income are accelerating the global demand for production and consumption of forest products and services, and putting significant pressure on forests, habitat of endemic species, decreased biodiversity, and disturbed ecosystem and other ecosystem services. Indonesia is getting grips of advancing development while addressing environmental challenges. Our national policies on forests are in line with the objective of SDGs. As mandated in the 1945 Constitution, Article 28H, is everyone or every citizen has the right to live in prosperous, both physically and spiritually, to have a place to live and to have a good and healthy living environment and the right of health services. Toward this direction and having the richness in biodiversity, the government of Indonesia emphasized the importance of sustainable natural resources management and ecosystem services. Indonesia has designated 552 conservation areas covering 27 million hectares. In addition to this, we have around 29 million hectares of protection forests and 0.7 million hectares of essential ecosystem. These sum up to over 51 million hectares of protected forests, or over 28% of the country's land, surpassing global IG target of 17%. Biodiversity is a pillar of life support system. Conserving and sustainably utilizing biodiversity can maintain the system. Indonesia implements 3 pillars of conservation comprising protection of life support system, preservation of biodiversity and its ecosystem, and sustainable utilization of natural resources. We do also approach to policies on landscape conservation and meta-population and their relationship in regard to species survival. So let me also share you a figure on deforestation, already actually mentioned by my colleague, Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs. Recently, Minister Siti Nurbaya has revealed a dramatic fall in the country deforestation rate. in the 2019-2020 period, down 75.3% compared to deforestation in 2018-2019 period, or from 462.5 thousand hectares declined to just 115.5 thousand hectares. This figure refers to the net deforestation and represents extremely sharp decline in deforestation nationwide during this pandemic year. On the ecosystem, Indonesia implemented integrated watershed, unique ecosystem, and coastal marine ecosystem management, including unique ecosystems such as mangrove and peatland. Excellencies, distinguished participants, in the context of achieving our NDC target in 2030, since 2015, with corrective policy and action measures on forestry sector, we have managed to achieve the target, but we are also aware of the fluctuation. Since we are dealing with nature, hence all the time we need to manage and control it, in particular in the forest fire control. We managed to reduce emission in the following years, 2016, to become 1,336 million tons CO2 equivalent. Emission reduction from forest and land fire in 2020 was only about 40.2 million tons CO2 equivalents. It was a dramatic reduction, reaching about 93% compared to emission in 2019, which is around 603.8 million tons CO2 equivalents. This emission reduction contributed significantly to the reduction of national GHG emission in 2020. Meanwhile, we still have emission from other development activities. Emission reduction profile in forestry sector show a fluctuation. Mitigation action contribute to the emission reduction, such as the emission reduction from deforestation, policy and implementation of sustainable forest management, and controlling forest fire and peatland. By maintaining the policies and enhancing guidelines and manual while controlling the implementation in the field, as well as improving the data and monitoring system and other relevant measures, by 2030, we will reach a carbon neutral or even negative emission in the forestry sector. Excellencies, distinguished participants, mainstreaming biodiversity in sustainable development planning across sectors, including public and private sectors, is a key to achieving the global target, as well as strategy to balance the conservation with sustainable development. Therefore, we need to continue mobilize new resources for biodiversity from a wide variety of sources, including natural capital accounting, internalizing the externalities, and payment for ecosystem services. Excellencies, distinguished participants, to further promote payment for ecosystem services in the context of sustainable management of our natural capital, the Omnibus Law, Act number 11 of 2020, set a policy which is the paper of the environment, the forest, and the people. The Act promotes implementation of forest utilization area to be more optimal by allowing a variety of activities, including social forestry and multi-business permits. The multi-business approach will further promote both timber and non-timber products, forest products, as well as ecosystem services of the forest area, including carbon sequestration and storage. Carbon sequestration and storage activities are indeed contributing climate change mitigation and adaptation to achieve our national NDC target. The newly developed multi-business approach demonstrate the configuration of forest management has a position forest as a landscape ecosystem, which needs to be based on social acceptable, ecological reasonable, and economically viable landscape-based forest management. Having said that, I would like to underline that the current policy regulation promote environmental or ecosystem services as a significant national development capital. Government take a very serious to shape our common nature for the present and future generation. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Vice Minister Dohong, for updating us and giving us really good vision on how we plan to have our, protect and develop our natural capital and ensure ecosystem services are going to be there for development. So we've come to the end of the plenary session, and I think all of us can agree that this has been a really good scene setting for the forthcoming sessions, where you will be doing more in-depth discussion on the various issues. I'm supposed to give you the main takeaways, so just in 1 or 2 minutes, if I can just give you a few takeaways to set the scene. I think it's very clear that the challenge is there. How do we achieve with ambition and with urgency and at scale, both the development goals and the climate goals? There's the opportunity, and Indonesia is leading by example, an opportunity for green, resilient, and inclusive recovery post-pandemic, and the opportunity is there. Indonesia is leading by example, as Pak Mahendra said, and also Pak Suharto emphasized, that we are doing a whole economy systems approach. We are looking at how the policy changes and institutional changes that are needed to drive the transformative investments in different systems, including energy. Pak Luhut and all of the ministers mentioned all the policy presidential decrees that we have come up, whether it's omnibus law or the renewable energy decree. And there's I think this is important, a recognition that is mitigation, but about resilience and adaptation, and especially on oceans and coastal conservation and natural capital preservation. And I think Minister Dohong just mentioned about how we are now incorporating natural capital accounting and payment for ecosystem services. So Indonesia has increased its ambition, leading by example, increased its ambition on NDCs, brought forward the net zero to 2060, phase out clearly on coal-fired power plants and renewable energy planning. But to do it and to do more, and with ambition, Indonesia cannot do it alone. And I think all of the speakers, including Secretary Kerry, has recognized that to achieve this at the scale that we need, given the climate crisis is already at and beyond tipping points, we need to act with urgency at scale. And everybody talks asking for global cooperation. This is a historic moment. This is a historic opportunity. But let's not just talk. It's not lack of capacity. The financing is there. There's a lot of trillions of capital that are looking for places to invest. And the technologies are increasingly there. So it's not lack of capacity, but lack of will. And the ability to do what counts and what is concrete, as Pak Mahendra said, in terms of international cooperation. So a number of things came out, and hopefully this will be coming out of Bali, as Jeff said. Advanced countries need to act, and Secretary Kerry said that US and at the recent G7, they have also come up with net zero ambition, but the provision of the increased resources that are needed, whether it's the 100 billion climate financing and technology, how can this really happen? Whether it's channeled through MDBs bilaterally or with private sector, this is something that we need to make sure we focus on. And how do we make sure the private sector which has to be coming up with the financing and the technology, can make this happen. This is about the policy changes, the investment environment, ensuring you know how to account for climate risk. It's about carbon pricing. It's about carbon markets and capacity for developing countries to be able to come up with the right environment to crowd in private capital. And this is a range of innovative financing instruments, including blended finance. And just to close that, the World Bank is ready to support developing countries like Indonesia on this journey, together with partners like the US-Indonesia partnership. We have committed 35% of our financing for climate finance and at least 50% for adaptation and resilience. So we really look forward to concrete actions. And as we all know, this needs global cooperation and unity so that we can, in accordance with the G20 2022 theme, so that we can recover stronger together. So let me end this really excellent session with a big thanks to all the speakers, to Pak Mahendra, to Minister Suharto, to Minister Dohong, and of course to our old friend Jeffrey Sachs. So I'll hand it now back to you, Shobi, I guess, for the next set of session, for the introducing us to the next set of sessions. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Ibu Mari, for your excellent moderation as always. I always enjoy seeing you in action. And thank you for our speakers. I think very, very strong support and a strong context setting for our next session, which we hope we will be able to rise to the challenge of taking the next step and turning it into concrete action. We have two parallel sessions of roundtables. We call them deep dive session. The first one will be addressing technology and innovation for a sustainable and equitable development model. We will be featuring technology projects and initiatives that will scale our collective climate action. And it will be facilitated by Professor Edward Crawley, Professor of Engineering at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and who is also a senior advisor at Tsinghua Southeast Asia Center and United in Diversity, Bali campus. And the second deep dive session in parallel. So one is talking about the technology and the other side is talking about how we can support that with financing. Envisioning regional climate ambition with inclusive and innovative financing towards a just net zero transition, featuring innovative financial solutions for funding SDGs and climate action, will be facilitated by none other than the amazing Catherine Sidulka, Director of the Blended Finance Task Force at Systemic. So Deep Dive Session 2 will be moved into your own breakout room. And you will have been renamed. And so with that, I hand it over to the tech team to move the respective participants. And for the main floor, I hand over the leadership and the facilitation to Professor Crawley. Ed, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shobi. Excellencies, honorable gentlemen and ladies, colleagues and friends. I've spent my life putting things into space. I'm a spacecraft engineer. And in my lifetime, we've gone to the moon, we've landed vehicles on Mars, we're on the verge of connecting the world through low Earth orbit satellites to the internet. These are real game-changing technological events, but they pale in comparison with the conundrum, the crisis, the challenge that we face in global climate change and global warming. We have to be able to reach our goals that are associated with the environment while still not exhausting our sources of capital, financial capital, natural capital, business capital, and technical capital. The other session of these two parallel ones focuses on the financing. And this session will focus on the technical issues, scientific issues of building our new environment. So in particular, we're going to talk about natural capital and energy alternatives. These represent working groups 2 and 3 of the 4 working groups set up between the United States and Indonesia. We're going to take an approach that has 4 steps. First, we're going to talk about enabling HR and business practices, sort of set the foundation, set the context of how we'll work together on these problems. Then we'll listen to our colleagues from Indonesia about the priorities that they have. What do they need most help with, and what do they need help with most urgently? Then we'll discuss some approaches, and finally we'll look back on this and see where we can engage and help support the Indonesian initiatives. These technologies we developed have to be scalable, sustainable, and equitable. Some ideas that have emerged from the working groups include initiatives such as IEEE's Engineers United in Diversity, the X Prize Call to Action, venture funds specifically oriented to SDG approaches, Bali as a prototype for a future Indonesian capital, and near net zero industrial parks in Kalimantan in the near future. So we have an assortment of distinguished colleagues and friends from around the world. And unfortunately, the timing only allows for very short comments by these people. The instructions to the speakers said 3 minutes. After 3 minutes, I'll make some gesture indicating that it's time to start wrapping up, because we have on the order of 15 speakers if we get to the bottom of the list. So our first speaker in the category of enabling infrastructure is going to talk about Engineers United in Diversity, which is an initiative of the IEEE, the largest professional society in the world. And the presenter here is Konstantinos Karachalos. Konstantinos, are you there?
I am.
Please go on.
Thank you, Ed. So I hope you are hearing me in
Yes,
an acceptable
fine.
way. Fine, thank you. So it is really a true pleasure and honor to join this forum today. And it was quite revealing to listen to the clear language, the personal attitude, and the inspiring words by the previous speakers. It was not just diplomatical talking. The key message is that right now, we collectively are letting our kids down. And the ones who, like me and also the others who spoke, take this personally, and we should take this personally, we should and see this as an unacceptable betrayal, we should unite and act. And with my participation here, I hope to contribute on behalf of IEEE, which is a global engineering and scientific association, to such a collective action. This is why I'm here today. Because it is very clear that without the appropriate technical knowledge and skills on the ground, no progress can be made. And Minister Luhut himself spoke of the necessity to establish a center of future knowledge. The problem with the sources of scientific and technical knowledge is similar to the sources of renewable energy. As John Kerry said, we are not lacking capacity. Capacity is abundant, but not necessarily where and when it is urgently needed. In the case of the capacity to transform publicly available technical information into actionable knowledge, we need large-scale and long-term capacity building and knowledge transfer programs. And there are myriads of such programs, of course, some more efficient than others, usually supported by foreign aid state agencies or benevolent foundations. In addition to these traditional aid for development actors, I suggest to send into this critical battlefield another untapped potential: science and engineering associations with a global reach and ambitions to serve humanity, and not only their current membership. These actors could create and sustain enabling frameworks to leverage global intelligence to offer local sustainable solutions, at least regarding the underlying technical problems. because it's not just technical, it is socio-technical. By doing so, we and the others also would assume a proactive role toward making technical knowledge a global public good, a kind of technical knowledge global commons for sustainable development. This is what we need. And dear Jeff, if you are listening, I'm sure you will be delighted to hear this because I've been discussing this years ago. I'm very pleased today to announce that, as already pre-announced by Ed just a few minutes ago, the United in Diversity Foundation and the Institute of Electronic Engineers are launching the Engineers Unite in Diversity program, which is aiming at designing sustainable solutions for, with, and by communities. I just signed it today, so it is a perfect timing. IEEE, while we are headquartered in the United States, was the world's largest technical professional body with around 400,000 members in over 160 countries. We are global and local in the same time. And this is really the opportunity we have. Our tagline is simply advancing technology for the benefit of humanity. And we have given ourselves a purposeful mandate to leverage global networks and resources toward applied local solutions in the emerging and developing countries. So this is a perfect fit, theoretically. Through the Joint Engineers Unite in Diversity initiative, we will invite technical professionals to offer their time, expertise, and resources to address engineering design challenges for the achievement of sustainable development goals as a first embodiment for a global commons I alluded to. More specifically, our collaboration aims at supporting long-lasting and sustainable engineering solutions identified, co-designed, and implemented with diverse partners, including local communities in Indonesia, where we start from, and the broader Southeast Asian region later, who may lack access to adequate technical resources and expertise. IEEE's choice to start with Indonesia and Bali makes sense. Jeff said it all. I should not repeat it here again. It recognizes Bali's unique position and Indonesia as the world's largest archipelagic nation, and me as a Greek, I have an affinity to the archipel, of more than 70,000 islands that cradle the world's fourth largest national population, as well as one of the world's richest marine biodiversity and highest natural capital and irrecoverable carbon stocks. But moreover, our collaboration will serve as an important catalyst for the global sustainable development movement aligned with the local three Hita Karana values. And it will provide opportunities for expert volunteers and professionals, because we cannot do this only as volunteering. We need to engage professionals and pay them to work with communities on a broad range of technical activities, including engineering studies, planning, design, project reviews, training, monitoring and evaluation, and hands-on implementation. And the work streams will address clean energy, waste, water, and sanitation management, ecosystem restoration and conservation, agriculture, and sustainable infrastructure development. So I would like to finish by saying that at the core of any solution will be also a code of ethical integrity to honor the unique geographic, cultural, and political context of the project and align the innovation practices with place-based values and wisdom of the Balinese Trihita Karana philosophy of happiness, which is the harmony of people, nature, and spiritual. Incidentally, in IEEE, we released a few months ago a standard of well-being indicators. This is the first ever by technical community. And there is an urgency for concerted action by the global and local collectives of the techno-scientific communities to address the complex dynamics of existing and emerging socio-technical systems and their deep impact on society and the future of humanity. And the Engineers Unite in Diversity is the clarion call to realign technology and innovation with the well-being of people on the planet. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to make this announcement today. Thank you, Ed and Sherry.
Konstantinos Patriotis, what a wonderful job. Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. One of the communities, one of the sources of capital that we can mobilize, have to mobilize, is the scientific and technical community, in part represented by these professional organizations. And this is really a new role that engages in a broad-scale problem through the professional societies. Thank you for the IEEE taking the lead, and we look forward to an important cooperation. Now, having learned this new approach, oh, and I should say that perhaps a little bit of silver lining of the pandemic is that we learned that we can work on problems elsewhere almost as effectively, if not more effectively, than we work on them in our offices. So this will be a global contribution of effort to a global problem. Now we want to talk about priority projects that our Indonesian colleagues have identified in the climate working groups. We're going to hear first about working group 3, which has to do with energy and renewable energy. The Director General of New and Renewable Energy of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, Dadan Kustiana, will speak next. Dadan?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Prof. Crowley. So I still have 3 minutes, yeah, Professor. So I would like to start.
Yes,
so thank you. So on behalf of the Working Group 3 of the task force, it's my honor also to share what we have discussed so far. We have done serial meeting together with United States, and I would like to share with you one slide. This is the one that we are going to propose for the further cooperation. So this is at least 15 or 20 years our planning to go for Indonesia to go toward the net zero emission. Of course, based on the just transition principle that we have to provide the energy with the good availability, accessibility, and of course affordability. And then we'll continue also to have more sustainable energy and also the competitiveness for the people here. So currently we use both fossil fuel and of course renewable energy. Our share of renewable energy is now 11.5%. And for the next 5 years, we would like to have double to be 23%. And for the next 10 years, we like to add around 20 gigawatt of renewable energy into the grid. It will be coming from the renewable energy in our domestic available resources, in particular solar, geothermal. We are the second largest of the resources of that renewable energy. And we like also to promote more the new one, wind energy, for example. We just have 2 projects in the country, and we like to have more with the partnership with the United States. We are leading by example on using biofuel. We are the country that use 30% of biodiesel, put it into diesel fuel. And we are now in the process of industrial preparation to have more green gasoline into the tank, put it into as the mixture with the gasoline. So on the other hand, that we are currently using more for electricity coming from coal. And of course, the Indonesia is rich in terms of core resources. So we have also proposing the idea to have more cooperation in CCUS on how to have this smooth transition, on how to have smooth passing out of coal together with the advancement of the technology in terms of the CCUS. In addition to that, the infrastructure for electricity, we are still lacking in the smart energy. We need more to enhance the smart grid. We need more to have a technology in terms of electric vehicle. Of course, we are the country with 17 islands. So putting more renewable energy, we need more energy storage. So we do here in terms of battery, and we are also in the stage to invite more stakeholders as the initiative to develop more further clean energy, including hydrogen. So by this, Indonesia then will have low carbon energy economics, and at the same time, we would like to increase also energy independency and of course the energy security. Next. This is Indonesia have. we have more than enough of renewable energy resources. Almost all of any type of renewable energy are available here in Indonesia. We'll add more around 38 gigawatt for 15 years. Now it's coming from geothermal, bioenergy, less amount coming from wind, and I think hydro is the most conventional of renewable energy that we are currently used in the country. So we like to enhance the cooperation, to open more our market for the cooperation, and also to increase the renewable energy implementation of the country. I think that's all from my side. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Tadan. I noted that this is a clear example of resource balancing between the carbon sources and the carbon sinks. I was surprised that wind is as small a wedge as your figure appears to be. Is there a systemic reason why wind is not desirable or not productive in Indonesia?
Well, mostly wind resources are located in the area that there is no demand yet. In particular, it's located in offshore in a very eastern part of the country. It's very close to Papua. This is a very eastern part of Indonesia. So there is no demand yet. And that island also, we have huge resources in terms of hydro. So now we are thinking to have the Indonesia super grid. So now we are doing the study how to connect those islands and to connect the demand and resources. The demand located mainly in the western part, and the resources of the hydro and wind are located in the east.
I see. So it's a future expansion plan.
Of course, yes.
Thank you so much for this insight. And I encourage our colleagues on the lines, all 201 of us, or 199, two just left, to think about how we individually and we as organizations can help address some of these issues that have been laid out by the ministry. There's a polling process that's coming up, and we want to see if we can engage in each of us as individuals and as collective organizations. Thank you so much. The next speaker is going to give an example of what I would call a prototype or a pilot. If we can get to zero net carbon by 2060 everywhere, we ought to be able to get to zero net carbon by 2030 somewhere, right? Some small version of the larger problem. So one of these proposals is for a net zero industrial park in Kalimantan, and Adrian Lebong is going to speak. Adrian?
Thank you so much, Edward. I have no slides at this moment, so I would just like to exchange some thoughts with you guys. I think one of the critical issues was just mentioned by Pak Dadan, because in Indonesia, the demand of energy is not necessarily where the renewable resources are. So our approach has been, how can we bring the demand to the resources? And so there's a little bit of a different approach, which I think is complementary to trying to connect the established demands in the western part of Indonesia, which you have mentioned, with what we are trying to do in trying to bring industry that is energy intensive to areas where we do have a reasonable amount of renewable energy. So one of these concepts is what we're trying to do is to develop a facility in North Kalimantan. This is obviously something that addresses three issues. Two of them that Ibu Mari has already explained, that we want to have higher utilization of the growth potential of renewable energy in Indonesia, while we are facilitating the creation of increase of GDP for the country. And in this particular case, we also picked this particular location because obviously because of the potential of renewable energy that is available there, but also because it's one of the outer provinces where we want to encourage a little bit more development and evenness of development within the whole country. So I think this is sort of the concept that we are working on. One of the things that we'd like to facilitate there is obviously to try to also be able to operate a smart grid that will mainly be looking at long-term at just renewable energy as a source of power for electricity. And we are inviting a lot of industries, and we're getting quite a bit of positive feedback from the various trips and discussions we've had with a number of different nations. Most recently, we've been to China, and there is a lot of interest for Chinese companies that are working with US entities, with US businesses, that are looking at the life cycle cost of or life cycle carbon footprint. And so there is already a lot of interest in there. And I'd like to catch on to something that John Kerry already mentioned, that this is a humongously interesting and fast growing segment of business within our global economy. And I'm quite excited to be part of that, the company that I'm representing today, hopefully will be able to facilitate these things. So what we're trying to do is say, look, if you can't get the electricity to where it's needed, then maybe it's an idea to bring the demand to the source of energy. And we are targeting specifically high energy intensive industries that can utilize the large amount of renewable energy that can be generated in the various regions of Indonesia. And in the meantime, also create a certain ecosystem within the Indonesian platform to create not just products, but also concepts, and bring forward the acceptability and availability of renewable energies into Indonesia. So in short, we'd like to use renewable energy to create even more renewable ecosystems in Indonesia. Thank you so much for this opportunity to explain the project.
That's a fascinating, Adrian, fascinating approach. I firmly believe in the need for what I call subscale or pilot exercises in these large systems problems. We have to be able to learn from our initial experiences and calibrate our models, both our technical models and financial models. So I hope that somebody in the audience today will be interested in working with you. So now we've had the ministerial view of energy and the environment, energy and electricity, and a commercial view. Now I'm going to return back to the ministry view for a second. Excuse me. We have dynamic scheduling. So Ibu Belinda Margona from the Ministry of Environment and Forestry is going to talk about the topic of that working group, which is natural capital. Belinda?
Thank you, Edward. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning for colleagues in US. My name is Belinda. I'm on behalf of the DG of Forest Planology and Government. Would like to give some update related to the Task Force 2, Natural Capital and Ecosystem Services, Land Use, Forestry, Mangrove, and Ocean. So the variety of the topic is quite wide because it's including the land use, the forestry, mangrove, and ocean. So we would like to have this in such a way, in a kind of a proposal that actually consists the area of interest that include the existence of land use, the forestry, mangrove, and the ocean. We do have already a couple of meetings. Meetings have been settled among Indonesian ministries and some institutions in Indonesia, even though we have not yet done with the final agreement. And we do have several meetings already with Indonesian and US. So we talk about the capability to have possible improvement in such a way to have the natural capital, ecosystem, and services. Because both of us, Indonesia and United States, agree that actually talking about the natural capital and ecosystem service is also related to the data. All the analysis, all can be done if we do have a strong and a good data for that. So in that situation, so far, the proposed activities is related to the optimization of the one map and the big data into the analysis of natural capital and ecosystem support in a way to support natural resource management. This including the use of technology, because we believe that I think for the future, technology will play an important role in helping us to give understanding us regarding our Earth. This proposed activity also include the capacity building and support all the activities related to the one map, the big data, and analysis of the natural capital and ecosystem services. As I said before, even though the activities are more related to the data and so on, however, because the area of the proposal is related to the land use, the forestry, mangrove, and ocean, so I think the focus of the area will be include all those land cover. Yet we are now still on the way to have some agreed proposal, because this is an idea that we are still ongoing conversation among other institutions and between Indonesia and United States. Because the proposal so far, we have to make it in a way to link to the NDC roadmap that has been settled by Indonesia. I think with that, I would like to conclude my announcement or some remark regarding the activity of the working group too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melinda. Has a document been drafted yet that establishes the priorities in Working Group 2? Or
we do have a couple of documents actually, but the document is still a proposal that not yet agreed between Indonesia and United States.
I see. Well, we'll look forward to when it comes out of the diplomatic process, so that the energy and climate and natural capital engineers and scientists, biologists can become involved. Thank you very much for your time. Well, so now we've looked at these tremendous injection of human resource through this Engineers Unite in Diversity initiative. We've heard from two of the appropriate working groups, the working groups on energy and natural capital. We talked a little bit about a pilot in Kalimantan, and now we're going to talk to a little bit about venture capital and how venture capital can be used to influence the investment flow into sustainability projects. Freddie, are you there? Freddie Scheiger.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate and to join and contribute here.
Welcome, Freddie.
We heard excellent proposals, initiatives and projects, and the political will to move forward. This is an important to give guidelines, a roadmap, legal environment, and capital. This top-down approach is crucial. Also, please approach, meaning propelling innovation, which is driven by market demand and entrepreneurial motivation and energy. The combination of good brains and capital is the most efficient way to propel innovation in the direction we want to do. So the plan we are here proposing is to create the first Indonesian business plan contest. I will briefly introduce that, combined with the startup venture financing. Can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So we're talking here about the nation first, at least in the first year, a nationwide business plan contest, which calls for teams to prepare business plans for their ideas that are aligned with what we want to accomplish. They have to be innovative. They must have a positive, sustainable impact on society and environment, and focus logically on ecology, society, health, but also, of course, using technology. And of course, they have to be executable. It is absolutely crucial to not only educate the entrepreneurs, to give them support, but also to prepare a financial structure. So we need, first of all, startup financing. And the idea is to have a venture fund that is then financing the winners of such a business plan contest. This could be the whole concept. We will see how far we will get, can be presented at the G20 next year. And in the future, the idea can be expanded into Southeast Asia. Next slide, please. What will such an initiative contribute? So first of all, it will create enormous economic power by gifted entrepreneurs that will find capital. We will, with this, prepare the foundation, the preconditions for a culture that lives from startups, from ideas, and people who have endless energy. It will hopefully create, with time, a nation of entrepreneurs, create hundreds, if not thousands, of new companies and jobs, high-profile jobs as well. With this, the financing, we will have a first start of a financing system, which is expected to attract investment, not only from Indonesia, but also foreign investment. And I think this is extremely important. And the returns, of course, are the drivers for investments, apart from the ecological goals. Very important is that the people will be educated in general, how to build up, how to structure a company, how to build up a company, and how business works. So we believe that this will have a substantial impact from the bottom up, that will broaden and will have a big effect also from a public relations, so that you see the role models of how they tackle the issues for becoming carbon neutral over the years. Thank you very much, and I'm available for questions.
Oops, sorry. How many times in the last year have we said you're muted?
It's meanwhile the most common comment. You are mute.
Share my docs is the other one. Well, it's a proven model. I remember as a student at MIT participating in the 10K competition back when we ran them for $10,000. But it's a wonderful way to mobilize another segment of the, we'll call it voluntary workforce, maturing workforce. We have the IEEE proposal for the senior people, and you've cast this 50K, 100K competition as a way to engage more of the younger set who are interested in a competitive environment, a financial environment.
Just
well,
one
colleagues,
comment, if I may, if you allow me.
Sure.
In Switzerland, we started in '98, and we created over 700 companies and over 7,000 jobs, even in Switzerland.
Even in Switzerland, that's fabulous. Somebody has to make the chocolate.
I just want to intervene just to say that Freddie has in his next text, I think out of 38 companies, 28 has gone to NASDAQ for listing, for being acquired. You're probably the most successful VCs in the biotech oncology in particular. So we are very grateful for this. Sorry, Ed, just to add in.
Okay. Freddie, thank you again. Colleagues, I warn you that there would be an opportunity to make a personal commitment, an institutional commitment to helping with these issues. So we're now going to take a form of a poll. Shobi, are you ready to orchestrate this?
Yes. So in the chat, thank you, Ed.
Let me give my example. So we're going to ask, are you ready to dedicate yourself or your organization to this quest? So you see, I was an aerospace engineer from the United States, which has to be the dirtiest job in the world in terms of screwing up with the climate. And I've come to Bali to help build a new university dedicated on the principles of sustainability. That's the sort of personal commitment that some of us can make. Others of us can make organizational. So over to you, Shobi.
All right, thank you, Ed. So in the chat, let me just copy and repaste. I think this has been posted a few minutes back. You will, if you click on the link, you will find a template of Google slide where you can enter your own commitment and your own actions that you can undertake to help us meet our ambitions and goals. And we will do that. While you do that, we still have about at least 12 minutes, Ed, to invite others in the conversation. So I see some are already writing down your answer. Thank you.
So in the room, we have several people we'd like to recognize and offer the opportunity to make short comments. The first is the Minister of Energy, Arifin Tasrif. Excellency, if you're there, can you wave or make a few comments? Perhaps we've lost.
Minister will speak, I think, later at the plenary, so maybe can pass to the others.
Okay. Next is the Vice Minister for the Environment and Forestry, Aliu Dahong. He was with us.
I think he spoke in the plenary earlier. So.
Yes, he did, and I don't.
I think Bunani is here too. Yeah, from the Marves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about
yes,
Ibu Nani Hindrit Arti?
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Edward.
Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak in this important event. Indonesia and US have a lot of experience related to the climate change issue. So there is a need to strengthen cooperation between two countries in the form of the task force climate. I think we have agreed with this step, especially if we have the same but differentiated responsibility. And we still need the support of the US in the terms of technology, innovation, and finance to control climate change. As we know, Indonesia is an archipelagic country with the second longest coastline in the world. So not only focus on the mitigation, but also in adaptation, especially in the coastal resilience. So therefore, it is important to promote cooperation in regard on the mangrove rehabilitation and coral reef restoration that need technology, socio-economy, also research and innovation. In addition, currently we are developing the Herbal and Horticulture Center in Polung in the North Sumatra with the special purposes for the conservation, research, and innovation of the medicinal plants. And in the same time, also this center can support the food estate program with the concept of the smart agriculture. So this joint task force is expected to produce concrete cooperation between two countries. I think we have presented by the DG Dadan in the terms of technology and innovation for energy sector, such as transitioning from fossil energy to renewable energy, where the US has a success experience in the phasing out of 25 gigawatt steam power plant. So we hope that the US will enhance its climate engagement with Indonesia in concrete terms within supporting our climate action under our NDC. I thank you, Professor.
Thank you very much. It's very important to hear about these important internal planning processes that are going on within Indonesia, which strengthen the bilateral relations with the US and its joint ventures. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we're honored today by having a representative from the Parliament, the Congress of Indonesia. I'm embarrassed to say I don't know what his member of Parliament is.
Roro. Yeah, Roro names. Roro Dia.
Yes. Roro. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
It's important to do the work of the people.
Yes, Edward, thank you very much for the introduction. Good evening, Indonesia time, honorable guests, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Special thanks to United University for the reference, and also, of course, to the coordinating Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Investment for inviting me here to take part in the Hita Karana Forum. It's wonderful. It really is wonderful to see such a distinguished panel from the start. And as one of Indonesia's youngest parliamentarian here right now, particularly overseeing the Commission on Energy, Industry, Research and Technology, I'm growing more and more optimistic that by the end of the day, we all share the same vision and are headed towards the same direction. And I'd like to also kind of just commend that not only will this benefit my generation per se and generations to come, but also I think by this point we've come to a realization that we don't really have any other choice, right? Given that climate change is real and we're starting to see and feel the impacts of climate change altogether. I'd like to highlight that the most important factor when we speak of change, right, is having the will in itself to create that change. And I'm happy to update everyone here today that we're currently working on a renewables energy bill in Indonesia with the hopes that this will help make renewables more competitive within the energy market. And, within this bill, it will consist things like enacting a carbon tax or a carbon pricing scheme and other incentives alike. And with that being said, not only will this ease, the energy transition required for us to meet our NDC targets, including the target of 23% renewables by 2025. We heard the kind of like the long-term plan earlier by Pak Dadan from the Ministry of Energy. And, it really just is also a chance in itself for us to transition into a green economy, right? And thus also opening our doors to foreign direct investment and in turn creating green jobs opportunities. So there's an immense multiplier effect that can come out of this energy transition. We're monitoring closely how this transition can be maximized. And of course, technology plays a tremendous and a huge role in this. And I think we need to start focusing in more detail with regards to technologies such as carbon capture storage technologies or batteries for electric vehicles, and generally technologies associated to renewable energy implementation. And so this is something currently being discussed. I think we have to also take into consideration that the oil and gas industry is still very prevalent in Indonesia, and that it plays a vital role in the developments or really just economic growth altogether. So I think change is not easy to do, right? It requires we say gotong royong, collectively working together across sectors and across industries and making sure that we all have the same vision of realizing, the targets. Now we have the net zero emissions targets. So I think that collective goal of headed towards that direction is very, very important. And so that in itself will change the way that we do business, pushing pushing the circular economy, for example, and how we can derive economic growth through systems that are more better for the environment. So this is just a few words that I'd like to add. And Indonesia is making tremendous progress in this field. And we are making sure, as parliamentarians, we're making sure that we are pushing the right policies that will help transcend the country and will help create a sustainable future for all of us. So thank you very much, Edward, for the opportunity.
Well, thank you for coming today. It's well understood, as you make this critical point, that policy has to go along with technology and business in addressing these issues. So it's good that there's a thoughtful examination of policy going on in the Parliament. And thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
So we'll now move from enabling policy to enabling business practice, where we have a gentleman who is unquestionably one of the world's thought leaders on business practice for a better world, Robert Kaplan from the Harvard Business School. Bob, are you on?
Yes, Edward, well, thank you. I just rejoined. I had to be offline on another call dealing with U.S. infrastructure bill, currently being very actively debated for the past 45 minutes, but I'm happy to rejoin. And so I apologize if anything I say replicates something I've said in the previous 45 minutes when I was absent. I do want to have 2 points from the business corporate side. I don't know the identity of the 192 people currently on the call. I fear that there are more participants from the public sector and the NGO than from the private sector. And I fear this because companies have to be part of this solution. And let me focus on the part of not the oil and gas industry just mentioned, but on the agribusiness sector, which is very important in Indonesia, because it connects with societal problems. This is where the poorest people currently work, in smallholder farmers. And they're also part of the problem in the deforestation and the pollution of land and water because of inefficient agronomic practices. But the hopeful sign is that there's a movement underway, and it's occurring in Indonesia to a limited extent and even in Bali, but something that we want to emphasize, which is to connect the impoverished smallholder farmers to the agribusiness supply chains. This is a real challenge, but it can be done, and we have working examples of where it can be done. And by connecting them to agribusiness supply chains, we're able to transfer best agronomic practices in water use, in productivity, and crop protection and fertilizer to make these farmers more efficient and more productive, raising their incomes without deforestation and, in fact, with enhancement of land use. I'm in discussions in fact, writing a paper with people at Bayer who have launched the Better Life Farming Program. Very, very innovative program to bring modern agronomic practices to smallholder farmers in remote villages. And so the benefits here is this is a win-win-win. We can achieve higher income for these currently poor people. We can do it without environmental degradation, in fact, with enhancing the environment, and also improving societal gains that's going on here. So let's facilitate government action and partnerships, and enabling the dynamics of capitalism to operate in this triple bottom line way of better economic performance, better societal performance, and for this audience, better environmental performance. This is actually feasible. There are these win-win solutions going on. The second part, let me build upon my professional background as an accounting professor. If you don't measure, we're not going to be able to manage and improve. And just recently, I became aware of where the current practices in ESG reporting and in environmental reporting in particular. And I was distressed to learn how inadequate, let me say, current standards of environmental reporting are. This traces back more than 2 decades to a group that came up with a framework of scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. This is a badly flawed framework. We can do better, and we need to do better. We're talking about carbon taxes. How are you going to tax corporations if we don't measure accurately and validly what their carbon footprint is? And the current thinking around this type of reporting needs to be improved. We know how to improve it. It's another paper that I've started to work on. So think about the measurement issue, because without measurement, we don't know where we are. We don't know whether we're improving or getting worse. But I mean measurement at the corporate level. And it's not just corporations, it's government agencies, ministries of transportation, ministries of defense have huge carbon footprints. We need to be measured accurately there and improve there. And so we need a big investment in this type of micro technology of measurement, but it's feasible. The good news is this is feasible because greenhouse gases is a physical measure. We can measure the quantities. We just have to do it in a way that's traceable to the products and services being produced by public corporations, by private corporations, and by government agencies. So I think this has to be part of the agenda going forward as well.
Well, Bob, thank you very much. As I'm sure you had the experience I have sitting on a public board of a public company and having to justify expenses which are not easily accounted for. It's a very challenging environment. So the creation of these standards will also allow sound and auditable decision-making. So thank you for the emphasis on this point. We're now going to go to my old friend, as old a friend as I have in Indonesia, that is Satrio, the president of the Indonesian Academy of Sciences, who's going to speak to us for a few minutes about the role of science and technology in the solution of these problems. Satrio, are you there?
Yes.
Welcome.
There will be a Hita Karana Center for Future Knowledge, which is located in Bali, and hopefully will be launched during G20 Summit 2022. The aim of the center is knowledge and technology transfer to improve quality of life, health, and happiness across the diversity of human communities and cultures, to seek solutions to complex regional and global challenges, and to contribute to economic development, to develop novel analytic and interactive paradigms, to develop knowledge exchange network with nearby national and regional partners, to dedicate resources to producing implementable and impactful solutions to address important issues of society. Then the expected outcomes of the center is, among other, implementable policies for increasing human health and happiness, creation of science-based evidence to underpin such policies, science and technology to reach Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, support of harmonious living for all peoples around the globe, leader in global development and beneficial for society, and significant and pervasive contribution to economic development. Thank you, Ed, for giving me the chance to give some aspiration.
Indeed, this is a grand aspiration, and it sort of rounds out now the set of resources, the human resources at an intellectual level, the human resources at a student level, the human resources at a scientific level, as well as the financial resources and natural capital that we have to work with. So it seems to me that Indonesia has made progress in identifying its priorities in global change. And it has arrayed a considerable community of Indonesians and collaborators from around the world to address these problems. Real progress is being made here. I'd like to now call on the US representative to the discussion to get some reflection and some reaction to this story about Indonesia and the bilateral relations. So I'm going to call on Reed Schuler, who's the senior advisor to John Kerry, who we met earlier, the Special Presidential Environment, Energy.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And it's just an absolute privilege to take part in this event today. And it's been a joy to watch the collaboration flourish between the United States and Indonesia on addressing the challenge of our era. This has been a rich conversation today. And I think we've heard a lot about how the clean energy transition is going to provide an enormous opportunity economically to develop and deploy clean energy technologies at scale. The way we create, store, and move electricity, our light duty and heavy duty vehicles, the way we heat and cool our buildings, and the way we produce steel and cement. And it's hard to overstate the scale of these changes in the coming decades and at the scale of the both challenges and opportunities. The recent net zero report by the International Energy Agency has highlighted that to reach net zero by 2050 globally, we're gonna have to dramatically accelerate the pace of clean energy technology deployment. And we're gonna have to start accelerating that pace starting today. We need to quadruple the rate of deployment of renewable energy, surpassing 1,000 gigawatts every year by 2030. And the good news is that we can reach our global 2030 emission needs largely with technologies already on the market. But we know that innovation also plays a critical role in this work, and that reducing clean energy costs through these new technologies will speed the net zero transitions that we need around the world. And the more that we do starting now and throughout this critical decade to invest and deploy these clean energy technologies of today, the more that we will build the market for the clean energy technologies of tomorrow and fuel innovation. And we're importantly, increasingly aware that this is not work that our countries do alone. So for example, we're excited that under the US-Indonesia Climate Working Group, the Task Force on Climate Ambition will hold a technical workshop to provide a deep dive on the climate modeling, data, and analysis across key sectors of the Indonesian economy that inform NDCs, long-term strategies, and net zero goals. And that workshop will look at projections under different technology pathways and help inform near-term and long-term decision-making on technology and policy pathways. And that'll feed back into our overall discussions. And we also know that we won't truly address the climate crisis unless we take an all-of-society approach, and that our efforts must be bottom-up as well as top-down. And that's why it's very exciting to hear about efforts like the Engineers Unite in Diversity initiative to source technical talent from across Indonesia and bring these people directly into the climate fight. And if we're going to be successful, this kind of initiative is exactly what we need to see more of. So it's been an absolute honor to take part in this rich conversation, which is itself one stop on the road of an even broader conversation between our two countries at the national level, at the level of governments, and at the level of private sector. And so thanks to THK and to our Indonesian hosts for bringing us together to have this conversation about how we can continue to deepen collaboration across sectors and invest in the solutions we need. So I'm looking forward to the remainder of our event. Thank you.
Thank you, Reed. And thanks to all of your colleagues in the Executive Office of the President, various agencies, for participating in these deep and intensive talks. Well, colleagues, maybe the world looks a little bit better now than it did an hour ago when we've heard about the priorities of the Indonesian government. We've heard about the willingness of the United States government to interact and support, but mostly because we've identified what I have sketched out on my note paper here is the four sources of capital. There's the human capital, which in some sense is the most important. The human capital represented by students who might be participating in entrepreneurship exercises, for example. We've the capital from scientists and engineers organized through the Academy of Sciences of Indonesia and the Hita Karana Center for Future Knowledge. And this blockbuster of an idea that we capitalize on the professional societies around the world to draw the experience and the strengths of these people in. There's, of course, the natural capital, which Indonesia abounds in. When I try to explain this to my colleagues who, being Americans, don't tend to understand climate issues as well as others, I say to them simply, look, we've lost the battle of Brazil. We can't afford to lose the battle of Indonesia. We have to maintain this rich natural capital for the future. There's the financial capital, which many have spoken about, and it's actually the topic of the other splinter group, the other working group. And the science and engineering capital, the know-how to do these projects. So I think these exist in Indonesia, they exist in partners, they exist with the assistance of the United States, and we should make this important alliance between Indonesia and the United States on these climate issues. So thank you all for participating in this breakout, this splinter group number 1. And I understand we're going to take a few-minute break and then recombine. So let's imagine that we're going to recombine at about 15 minutes after the hour.
Thank you so much, Ed, for your excellent sharing of the facilitation. We are indeed awaiting for the second group to wrap up. I see a hand raised. Can we take comments perhaps? Of course, this is also an old friend who's very knowledgeable about Indonesia. Ambassador Blake, I see your hand.
Bob, how are you?
Thank you very much, Ed and Shobi and everybody else. It's delighted to be a part of this today. I just wanted to pick up on Professor Kaplan's remarks about the important role of the private sector. Many of you may know that there's an important global initiative underway now to help multinational corporations to set science-based emission reductions targets, and it's called sciencebasedtargets.org. So you can Google that. And basically, there are now more than 1,000 multinational corporations who are part of this initiative. I think about 750 or so have actual targets that they have set through a very rigorous science-based process. And but very few Indonesian companies. And I think that's mostly because they're just not aware of it. So I would just like to suggest that as part of all of our efforts to help Indonesia to reduce its emissions, that this would be a real kind of low-hanging fruit to make some progress. And I think either Kadin could host an event of some sort, perhaps with the Ministry of Energy or Luhut, to just encourage companies to participate in this, because I think it could make a real difference. Thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you for your participation as always, Bob.
Thank you, Ambassador Blake. Thank you, Ed. How are we doing on group 2?
I think there's another hand raised, if I'm not mistaken.
Satya.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, go ahead. Good to have you.
Well, thank you very much, Shobi, for time. Hi, Bob. How are you? I like to echo what just Bob saying about the the business that not really picked up, from Indonesian side, because if you may know that the renewable energy business in Indonesia is a bit slow because of the pricing issues, and the government like to solve with the PLN, because PLN is the main off-taker of the renewable energy, basically. So if we are able to manage with the pricing, that's going to move even further for the development of renewable energy in Indonesia. But beside that, I like also to emphasize in this prestigious forum that Indonesia has been living for a decade in the fossil fuel economy, and we like also to add the technology in order for the fossil fuel still contribute to the economy in Indonesia with reducing the emissions. I think the carbon capture storage that has been mentioned earlier with the previous speaker, I think this is the best if you like to to contribute. If the US could bring technology that can make the carbon capture storage become more, quote unquote, is more efficient, more economies. And so all the fossil fuel economy could participate and could add on it. So it means that they will going to participate to reduce the emissions. This is one thing. The second thing is about what the electricity company PLN plan to do it in stages in order to to reduce their coal-fired plant. But at the moment, we still have plenty of coal-fired plant days. So again, the technology need to penetrate on that. So PLN is promoting what's so-called with the co-firing. This is one of the options in order to combine between coal and biomass. This is also the way we're trying to reduce the carbon footprints, by descending the coal-fired plant. So I think this is if the US again could bring technology that could also reduce the pricing, that help a lot. Otherwise, it's difficult nowadays, to stimulate the renewables in Indonesia as a whole. If you look at from the pricing issues, even though the government is now proposing a presidential decree for the pricing of renewable, but hopefully that will attract more investor to come to Indonesia. Renewables energy sectors. So I do agree with what the Professor Edward mentions about again a lot of opportunity, a lot of thing can happen in the future by cooperating between Indonesia and the US, particularly on the technology side. I think that's all my take, for this tonight discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Satya. You're representing the National Energy Council, so very important voice in this conversation. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
I just wanted to seek some advice from the organizers since Deep Dive Session 2, I think it's still just wrapping up, but we are at, we're very pressed for time in the main floor because some of our other speakers have very limited time with us.
I suggest we just proceed.
Okay. All right. With everyone's blessing, may I then thank you so much for all your contribution to this excellent discussion in this roundtable on technology and innovation. While we wait for Deep Dive Session 2 on financing, may I introduce the facilitator and moderator for the second plenary session, Ibu Shinta Kamdani, Vice Chair of Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and the Executive Board of the International Chamber of Commerce. Ibu Shinta, the floor is yours for our next plenary session.
Hi, good evening from Jakarta. I know we're running behind. Shall we start on the second plenary session? So again, Your Excellency, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Shinta Kamdani. I'm the Vice Chairwoman of the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce Industry, Kadin Indonesia. I welcome you again to the second plenary session. I mean, I don't know whether I guess there's no newcomers coming in. So I just want to share with you a bit on the latest research. I think it's clear that to avoid the worst climate impacts, global greenhouse gas emission, we'll need to drop by half by 2030. And I think many of our speakers mentioned this. And for us to reach the net zero emission around the mid-century. Considering this urgency, I think a rapidly growing number of national government, local government, and business leaders are making commitments to reach the net zero emission within their jurisdiction or their businesses. On the path to global net zero carbon emission, the finance industry, and this is what the topic will be on this plenary session, the finance industry is the key driver, while the technology is an enabler of sustainability. However, the ongoing health crisis has also shown a few unpleasant evidence-based data. We are faced with the fact that renewable energy investment globally actually has dropped by 34% during the 2020 caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Another challenge also we see come from the fact that many public funds will concentrate on mitigating the pandemic impacts on public health and the economy, while the recession will derail the supply of private funds. Both of these factors will threaten the climate progress that we have achieved so far. That being said, of course, the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting socio-economic crisis make this mission even more challenging, and we are going to talk about how we can better synergize our action going forward to ensure that our aim for a net zero emission will be achieved. So let me start by introducing to you Your Excellency Bapak Arifin Tasrif, which is the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources of the Republic Indonesia, who will be sharing some thought on a transition towards this net zero emission. So welcome, Pak Arif, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Zinta. Honorable guests, distinguished speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My highest appreciation for Hita Karana for arranging for the second time this kind of meeting. The theme is aligning for climate action on road to net zero emission. Such a great initiative to discuss and share views on our transition process towards net zero emission. During the Leader Summit on Climate in last April, a number of countries have pledged to implement policies to achieve net zero emissions in 2060. The target for 2050 as a follow-up to the Paris Agreement. In the meeting, our President Joko Widodo also stated that Indonesia is committed to encourage green development and increase investment for energy transition. Indonesia is determined to reduce emission at least 29%, or equivalent to more than 300 million tons CO2 emission greenhouse gas by 2030. By last year, Indonesia nationally determined contribution, the realization for energy sector has reached more than 60 million tons of CO2 emission. The main contributors are from new and renewable energy, energy efficiency, and fuel switching. In order to further achieve net zero emission, our Ministerial Office has been preparing an energy transition roadmap to carbon neutral as follows. From 2021 to 2025, renewable energy will reach 23% of total energy mix in 2025, and there is no additional coal power plant unless it is already having purchasing power agreement, contract, and under construction stage. Converting the use of diesel fuel into gas power plant with the total capacity around 2 gigawatts, then further gradually transforming to renewable energy afterwards. In addition to that, we are also carrying out study for an electricity total. We name it Nusantara Grid, which connects the electricity network between major islands as well as Maluku, Nusa Tenggara, and Papua, so that the electricity of renewable energy can be transmitted to broader areas, especially to those that have minimum resources but high electricity demand. From 2026 to 2030, solar PV and electrical appliances, especially household and transportation, will be developed massively, targeted to reach 2 million cars, 13 million motorcycles, and more than 10 million units of electric stoves. From 2031 to 2035, additional capacity of 38 gigawatt renewable energy power plant, prioritizing on solar and hydropower, as well as deployment of carbon capture and storage or carbon capture utilization storage in fossil power plants. From 2036 to 2040, there will be a peaking emission in 2040 or earlier. Integrated gas combined cycle power plant with CCS and 100% sales of electric motor vehicle. From 2041, 45, and 50, we are going to develop nuclear power plants and also hydrogen energy. Coal power plant and gas power plant will be retired. Right now, we are preparing a program for the retirement. So by these days, I think the 100% sales of electric car will happen, and then carbon neutral hopefully can be achieved in 2050. To successfully implement this energy transition roadmap, it is important to acknowledge that there are a variety of technologies and energy can be utilized. Each country has its own respective capabilities and circumstances in transitioning toward a sustainable future. Therefore, support and cooperation with other countries and relevant organizations that have well experience in the fields of energy system, policy planning, technology, capacity building, including technical assistance, and the most important thing is financing, will be greatly beneficial in aiding Indonesia's effort to expedite renewable energy transition and recover the economy. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, to implement energy transition is certainly not an easy job, but with commitment, consistency, and collaboration, I believe that this target is not impossible to achieve. We are looking forward to work together with all parties to tackle various challenges in implementing the just energy transition process. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I think great. We all great to know that Indonesia, I think, has a very clear roadmap in terms of our energy transition to carbon neutral, and I think we've been really much looking forward to this. And I think that our government has made a very clear progress in having a clear pathway. Thank you, Minister, for your insightful views. I think it's really a no-brainer that advancing the pace of transition towards a climate resilient economy will require also enormous of resources and investment. I think a recent estimation from OECD stated that we need at least $6.9 trillion infrastructure investment per year to meet global development needs through 2030. So mobilizing trillions of dollars of low carbon investment is a huge challenge, but it also presents a massive opportunity for innovative finance. So we're talking about green bond, green sukuk, SDG Indonesia 1 to be the bridge toward this net zero emission. The next speaker is Bapak Luki Ackerman, Director General of Budget Financing and Risk Management from the Ministry of Finance and the Indonesian Chair of Climate Working Group. Bapak Luki will present his insight on the topic of sustainable and blended finance for our common future. So, Pak Luki, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bu Sinta. His Excellency Bapak Luhut Pandjaitan, Coordinating Minister of Maritime Affairs and Investment, His Excellency Coordinating Minister of Economic Affairs, Bapak Airlangga Hartarto, His Excellency Chairman of OJK, Bapak Wimbo, His Excellency Minister Arifin Tasrif, Excellency Minister Suharto Manoarfa, Vice Minister Mahendra, Vice Minister Alodohong, ladies and gentlemen, very good evening from Jakarta. It's great connecting with you in this virtual meeting, and I wish you all good health and condition. Indonesia has pledged our strong commitment to shift the economy to a low carbon and climate resilient development path that has been integrated in the development policies, strategies, and programs. In this regard, the national policy directions consist of 1, improving the environmental quality, 2nd, enhancing disaster and climate resilience, and 3rd, low carbon development. Accordingly, we at the Ministry of Finance have a role related to fiscal and financing policies, such as climate finance policy formulation and coordination, planning and budgeting for climate programs, climate budget taking, mobilizing other financing sources for climate actions. For example, government has mainstreamed climate change into the National Medium-Term Development Plan 2022-2024 and established National Action Plan both on mitigation and adaptation. So accordingly, the government has consistently allocated around 4.1% of our budget for climate actions over the last 5 years. We have started to implement climate budget tagging, or CBT, for the mitigation budget in 2016 and CBT adaptation budget in 2018. Climate budget tagging is a feature in our planning and budgeting system to track government spending on climate change and climate-related projects. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we know climate change actions are unfortunately quite costly. The latest estimation show that, for example, in the second biennial update report, Indonesia needs at least 3,461 trillion rupiah by 2030 to fund climate change mitigation projects. The average per year requires around 266 trillion rupiah. The government spending on climate change has been quite limited. So far, recorded only around 373 billion rupiah in the period of 2016 and 2019. In short, with current pace, there would be a significant budget gap to achieve the target set in our NDC. So with the state budget can only cover 34% of the total climate financing need, that is why collaboration with our international partners in financing knowledge and technology is key going forward. Furthermore, toward the net zero target, fiscal policy is crucial to fill the gap and leverage private finance. We provide incentives, tax facilities, and public-private partnership scheme to stimulate private investment. And we assign dedicated stand-on enterprises such as PTSMI to source and mobilize funds for climate actions. In addition, with the rapid development of global green bond market in recent years, we also look for any opportunity in developing new and innovative instruments to finance green projects. So ladies and gentlemen, as we know, Indonesia is the first sovereign green sukuk issuer in the world. Global Green Sukuk is innovative financing that is part of Government of Indonesia commitment to supporting Indonesia NDC. Minister of Finance has so far issued sovereign global green sukuk 4 times. The first one was issued in March 2018 with the amount of $1.25 billion US. Second issuance was in 2019, around $750 million US. And in November 2019, we issued the first retail green sukuk around 1.46 trillion rupiah. During the pandemic, Government of Indonesia issued the third global green sukuk in June 2020 in the amount of 750 million. And last but not least, in 2021, early this month, Indonesia has achieved the first ever the global 30-year green sukuk issuance in the world, with the participation coming from green investor reached 57%. So the impact of green sukuk issuance 2020 is not only environmental benefit, but also social benefit as shown in our impact report. In terms of environment benefit, for example, the issuance is projected to reduce 1.4 million tons CO2 gas house emission. So in terms of social benefit, the issuance is projected to fulfill raw water supply needs for drinking water of 275 million, benefit more than 2 million households due to the improved waste management. Moreover, following the success of green sukuk issuance, we are now currently preparing the issuance of SDG bonds. To achieve this, we are developing a new comprehensive framework covering various aspects, including green, social, and even blue financing. The framework is called the SDG Government Securities Framework. This SDG Government Security Framework has been developed to demonstrate how Government of Indonesia intends to issue different thematic bond, green bond, blue bond, SDG bond, to fund projects that will deliver environmental and social benefit to the nation. However, our experience suggests that the issuance of thematic bond does not guarantee pricing benefit from a more competitive yield. The yield of green sukuk issuance is not significantly different from non-thematic bonds. This condition may discourage other potential issuers from issuing green or other sustainability bonds. Therefore, to encourage more sovereigns or corporation, private sectors to issue green or other social bonds, investors and market should be able to provide better incentives on sustainable or green instruments, in particular through pricing benefit. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia has always been very committed in the carbonization of the economy, which could be supported by several means. For example, phasing out fuel subsidies or deploying policy measures such as carbon pricing, just explained by Minister Arifin before. These are the concrete action to achieve emission reduction target and adjust affordable and sustainable transition. Many countries are making progress in this effort, including Indonesia. Indonesia has undertaken a bold fuel subsidy reform in 2015. The government has cut the subsidy for gasoline and reallocated the saving for more productive spending, such as health, education, and infrastructure development. Making this happen required a combination of mitigating the risk reform, getting the right momentum, and managing public opinion. Indonesia is now in the process of finalizing presidential regulation on carbon pricing, which will provide guidance to set up a domestic policy and national framework for carbon pricing. We believe that a proper carbon pricing framework will increase economic opportunities for the private sector to support Indonesia in scaling up emission reduction activities that go beyond the unconditional NDC commitments. In short, carbon pricing can benefit emerging economies as it provides a source of revenues for climate action and achieve the NDC targets. However, adoption of carbon pricing should go together with international support for developing countries. In this context, it is important to note that developed countries should transform their commitment into action by providing affordable technology and financing for developing countries. Ministry of Finance has also put effort to open financing access from global resources such as GCF. As we know, the GCF is the world's largest source of climate finance. GCF so far has approved 3 project proposals from Indonesia and provided grants for the NDA, Project Preparation Facility for PTSMI, and also RED Plus result-based payment. To mobilize and diversify other sources of ADG's financings, Ministry of Finance has established some financial platforms named SDG Indonesia 1 and BPDLH, or Environment Fund Management Agency. Indonesia 1 is a blended finance platform managed by PTSMI to facilitate philanthropic involvement, engagement, international donors, green investors, commercial bank, multilateral development bank, and other investors. BPDH, on the other hand, is a government agency that aims to supporting conservation and environmental management, and is expected to also cover support for a wide range of sectors, including biodiversity and resiliency through a wide range of instruments. It collects funds from various sources, including donors, and provide grants, equity, loan, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, for closing, we hope all this collective and concerted effort will be beneficial for all of us in achieving the net zero carbon emission target. And we at Ministry of Finance stand ready to support this ambitious yet needed initiative on bolder climate change action. Thank you very much. Very good evening. Back to you, Bu Sinta.
Thank you, Pak Luki, for explaining that Indonesia has launched also the agency to manage funds for this climate change management as part of the effort to meet its climate goals. And Indonesian government also announced its plan to introduce the feed-in tariff pricing scheme, as well as develop blended finance to boost investment in the green energy sector. So we can see how it supports each other to this target. There's a note coming from one of our participants here, Pak Luki, that mentioning that it will be great for financing incentive mechanism to be placed high in the agenda of G20 financial track. So just a little note for you. Participant, as you know, Indonesia will hold presidency of G20 next year. So I think there's a reminder here, Pak Luki, just a note to put this also as the agenda of the G20 financial track. So I think our next speaker, definitely, as we know that combating climate change also needs collaboration. We now would like to invite Mr. John Morton, climate counselor to the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, to share some of his remarks. Secretary of Treasury in practically of how U.S. and Indonesia collaboration could also bring a significant avenue in combating climate change. Please, over to you.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, Ministers, Minister Luhut, Secretary Kerry before, distinguished guests. I'm delighted to speak with you today about the opportunities that Indonesia will have in securing its path toward a net zero future, the types of sustainable and blended financing that will pave that path, and how the US can support Indonesia's climate finance goals. As we've talked about today, finance obviously plays a vital role in accelerating a clean energy economy and building a resilient future. And as we work to transition our global economy, we are committed to working with Indonesia to catalyze the financing necessary for your ambitious climate targets. The fight against climate change requires unprecedented global cooperation and a shared sense of urgency and commitment. And I think the US-Indonesia partnership exemplifies the type of cooperation that is necessary at this time. The Department of Treasury is pleased to continue our close relationship and partnership with Indonesia through the bilateral Climate Working Group's Task Force on Sustainable Finance, which Treasury's Acting Assistant Secretary Larry McDonald and the Ministry of Finance Director General Luki Alferman are ably co-leading. Even in the relatively short period of time that the task force has been working, we've already made impressive progress toward together by increasing cooperation in areas that will be vital to unlocking financing for Indonesia, including capital market development, thematic bond incentives, and energy transition strategies. Our joint work on the task force is timely since the costs of inaction for our health, our economies, and future generations are simply too high. That is why the United States and Treasury have implemented a range of new initiatives to support climate finance internationally. For example, earlier this year, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen launched the Climate Hub, which I lead, to drive a high-level focus on climate finance and coordinate expertise across the Treasury Department in support of the fight against climate change. In addition, under our recently announced International Climate Finance Plan, Treasury will work with the multilateral development banks, which are, as you know, among the largest sources of public climate finance, to ensure that these institutions have ambitious targets as well as policies that are focused on mobilizing the private finance necessary. A special interest for Treasury and partner US government departments is a focus on coal transition. And that is why we are supporting bilateral and multilateral efforts to finance the transition to clean electricity. Earlier this month, you may have seen, we and our G7 partners announced the launch of the Climate Investment Fund's Accelerating Coal Transition Investment Program. And with this support of up to $2 billion in new donor funds, the ACT program will mobilize up to $10 billion in financing for coal transition, including the expedited decommissioning of current coal facilities in countries around the world. We are also encouraging the MDBs to develop transition finance platforms, such as the Asian Development Bank's Energy Transition Mechanism, which will accelerate retirement of coal plants and has identified Indonesia as a key focus country. We are particularly pleased to collaborate with Indonesia on coal transition through our bilateral task force, and I commend Indonesia's commitment to end construction of coal-fired power plants by 2023 and to put a halt to all coal plants that have not yet reached financial close. We're very pleased to be working with Indonesia on the roadmap toward the cleaner future. However, we also understand very intimately domestically how difficult this transition can be and how vital it is to ensure that coal impacted economies are not left behind. In the United States, as you know, we have struggled with this ourselves, and we've learned some hard-won lessons, which we look forward to sharing with our Indonesian counterparts. And that's why the US is currently organizing a series of workshops through the task force that will bring together top thinkers, technical experts, and government officials to work on potential financial tools and just transition pathways that support Indonesia's net zero goal. Though this transition will be difficult, there is no shortage of private sector financing for renewable infrastructure. In fact, investors are demanding more projects that align with sustainability goals. Investors have told us there is almost no limit to the capital they can direct toward green infrastructure if they have a steady stream of bankable, reliable, transparent, and sustainable projects. And so we are working to unlock financing by dismantling the barriers investors have named, such as lack of data and transparency, by advocating for indicators and supporting disclosure discussions in the G20. Despite the barriers, the numbers show that demand for clean energy is still soaring. And over the last several years, ESG investing, that is investing in line with environmental, social, and governance principles, has increased tremendously. ESG fund assets grew from just 10 billion in 2015 to nearly 250 billion in March of 2021. Companies like the Vanguard Group and BlackRock, which together control an estimated 14 trillion in assets, have committed to net zero portfolios themselves, and there's a growing number of financial firms that are committing to net zero platforms by mid-century. We would like to help Indonesia harness this tremendous demand by supporting your efforts on incentives for thematic bond issuances and identifying de-risking tools like guarantees and political risk insurance that could expand the volume of clean bankable projects in Indonesia. Treasury experts in our Office of Technical Assistance have worked on these and related topics with other countries and look forward to doing so now with Indonesia. Through the task force, the US and Indonesia are exploring many fruitful areas of collaboration that will increase investment flows toward Indonesia's green projects and enable enable ambitious climate targets. Together, we simply must find ways to leverage our public sector dollars to mobilize private sector investments to further accelerate this transition, including support for the communities it will most affect. And I believe our work in partnership with the Asian Development Bank under the ACT, upcoming bilateral coal transition workshops, and bilateral technical assistance to mobilizing ESG investments will help us get there faster. I look forward to doing everything we can do together in a short period of time. And I would like to thank you again for the invitation to speak here today and for convening this very, very important meeting and topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. John Morton. Unfortunately, the organizer doesn't have time anymore to let us have a discussion, but I just want to note there is a comment in the chat box, which I will read to you, saying that we need more concrete effort to make more projects in emerging countries like Indonesia bankable. Opportunities are abundant, yet very few bankable. So underlying that, I think I do believe that we have a very high hopes on how we can move forward together. And I think some of the plans that you have shared definitely give especially on the coal transition and financing for this will be very much important for Indonesia. So before I will give the floor back to our MC, I would like to thank everyone for joining this session, especially our speaker. I think I want to just close with a quote from Marshall McLuhan saying that there are no passengers on spaceship Earth. We are all the crew. So let us work as the team for protecting our Earth and to achieve net zero emission to a whole new level. So I'm Shinta Kamdani. Good evening to you all. Back to you, MC.
Thank you so much, Ibu Shinta, for your excellent facilitation as always. Pleasure to have you, and thank you to our speakers for signaling very strong support and commitment. I'm just about to enter into our closing sequence, but I think today has been very encouraging. And there's lots to do, but today is a very important first step. And so to close, I would like to invite His Excellency Airlangga Hartarto, Coordinating Minister of Economic Affairs of Republic of Indonesia, and to provide the closing remark for today's session.
Pandjaitan, Honorable Mr. John Kerry, Her Excellency Ms. Siti Nurbaya Bakar, His Excellency Mr. Arifin Tasrif, Her Excellency Mrs. Sri Mulyani Indrawati, His Excellency Mr. Suharso Monoarfa, His Excellency Mr. Wimbo Santoso, His Excellency Mr. Mahendra Siregar. This has been a very rich discussion, and I very much welcome the valuable insight that have been shared by many. I would like to thank the US government for its support and to all the speakers and participants for your support during this forum. I would like to thank the Hita Karana Forum for its leadership and collaboration in support of the government of Indonesia. I think you can see from the presentation in this forum that the Indonesian government is playing its role to bring about a better future for well-being of its people, as well as contributing to the global goals. Indonesia appreciates the initiative of Natural Capital Carbon Communities Superpower. Indonesia is unique blue and green Nusantara or archipelago, endowed with us natural capital wealth. Indonesia has the largest standing rainforest in Asia and the third largest endowment of tropical forests in the world. We enjoy rich biodiversity, mangrove cover, and extensive peatland. We have mainstream low carbon development into our midterm development plan in line with our NDC's commitment. The President issued a permanent moratorium for clearing of primary rainforest and peatland. The impact was immediate, and Indonesia have successfully reduced the deforestation rate. And we launched a national plastic action partnership to drive the global effort on plastic pollution and promoting reduce, reuse, recycle, and replace. We are taking regional leadership by hosting the UN Sustainable Development Solution Networks. ASEAN is focused on regional developments, and individually the members have their own challenge. As we recover from the pandemic, while we need to provide jobs, the recovery plan needs to do more. It's opportunity to set out on a sustainable development path. For Indonesia, opportunities abound from the growing share of the population that will live in cities, including the faster growing mid-sized cities. The massive digital market and opportunities around renewable energy such as geothermal, wind, and solar power. Nickel developments align with investment in lithium batteries and electric vehicle is promising opportunity. Indonesia has reformed significantly the investment climate by issuing the Omnibus Law job creation. It will give more windows to investors and development partners without compromising the environmental protections. We see entrepreneurial technological change and innovative finance as key to transforming our development path into green economy. We plan to launch the Center of Excellence in Technology and Finance during our 2022 G20 dinner. We are looking to the private sector for tech innovation because through private sector entrepreneurship, we can secure the massive change needed to meet the global goals. A Center for Future Knowledge is a platform for technological innovation and transfer with global collaboration. The Center of Future Knowledge Green and Clean Renewable Energy Hub will support the value creation for better business and better world. The center will focus on the role of technology transfer, R&D by the private investment, with leading global academia and research in realizing a sustainable future in Indonesia. We have launched the THK roadmap on blended finance that has been developed by a global community with the guidance from the OECD, and we will establish a multilateral global blended finance institute in Bali. The Global Blended Finance Institute will play a role in attracting funding toward developing high-quality decarbonization projects to mitigate funders and private investor risk with capacity building on project preparation and blended finance principles on good practice, transparency, mobilization, inclusiveness, and impact measures. We will make every effort to accelerate progress, including exploring the possibility of achieving net zero. Accomplishing these ambitious goals, including the scaling up of renewable energy, can create more jobs than relying on fossil fuels. However, to deliver more ambitious target requires transfer of technology and investment to support the transition. We welcome the collaboration of our partners across the G20, international organization, and civil society. Our newly established Sovereign Wealth Fund, INA, will be an important entity of funding for this development. We welcome support through investment in this fund. As President Joko Widodo chair in G20 in 2022, I can assure the global community that climate change and support for emerging economies and developing countries to achieve global climate ambition will be a priority. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Hartarto. I think as we sit here and listen to all the excellent commitments and support, I do allow myself to feel that maybe my child and her children's children will have a different future than the one that we feared. And before we close, I just want to invite perhaps one more voice that we should be listening from that has been absent from our gathering today, which is the voice of our youth, our future generation. We have a representative, a young lady from West Papua, who actually wrote this poem for the high-level meeting last year. Her name is May Osok. And so if I may invite our tech team to bring May's voice into our conversation tonight.
Imagine, beautiful in green, delightful in blue, a home where born forest, mountain, sea, and gold. Richness of customs and traditions, an open heart, a willingness, a warm hug. We are here. Hand in hand we run against the world left behind. Run against the ignorance, run against the world underdeveloped. We learn, we work. We stand in love and passion to be a name, to be a better home, to be a blessed future. We build up. For it is not heaven fallen earth, it is heaven on earth, a child of unity in diversity.
Thank you. Thank you, May, for bringing your voice and reminding us why we're all here for the future. I would like to invite, before we close, please, two more things. One, please bring in your voice. We have a Mentimeter poll just to capture how do you feel right now after, of course, it's been a long evening, but I hope it's worth it. And so we would like to hear from your voice. The link is in the chat box right now, and please stay for a group photo and just to say goodnight to everyone after this. So please go ahead, click on the chat and the link. It seems that it's not loading the results, team. And perhaps while we do that, we can take the time to take our group photo while we figure out the technical side of Menti. So if you would please open your camera and put your best smile after this long evening, but hopefully feeling hopeful for the future. Thank you so much for all of us for joining this historic moment in time, potentially very, very impactful step towards a collective future of net zero carbon through collaboration between Indonesia and United States. Thank you so much. While that is loading, can we take the group photo first and then we can go back to the Menti? All right, on to gallery view, and we do the happy, shall we? We have this happy greetings for a happier future.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Smile, please. Hold on for a moment.
And hold that smile, might be a few pages.
Okay, thank you, Bapak Ibu.
All right, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Please
You can unmute.
Unmute your mic and say your good night, goodbye, or say your greetings and best wishes. Thank you so much for apologies for the overtime. Patience and your
On the top.
Bye.
Good night.
I'm a grandfather. Congratulations, the Gordon.
Congratulations,
Sherry,
Gordon, on new
good to
life.
see you, Sherry. Daniel from Brazil.
Hi,
Bye-bye.
Daniel. Hi.
And thank you, Sherry. Thank you.
Congratulations, Gordon.
From Japan.
Congratulations to all.
Beautiful island. Behind the poem, it was a beautiful island there.
Oh,
That's Raja Ampat, Papua, West Papua.
Papua.
A beautiful way to end. Congratulations. Thank you. Fantastic evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. Good to see you. Thank you, our moderator, facilitators, Catherine. Good to see you.
Thank you, Shobi. Thanks, Sherry. Excellent
Thank you,
conference.
VP.
Learned a lot.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
VP.
Stay healthy, everyone. Stay safe. Take
Thank
good
you.
care.